Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along. Which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/zip. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ziprecruiter.com/zip. That's ziprecruiter.com/zip. ziprecruiter.com/zip.
Remember those endless summer days that felt like they just last forever? Sun rays kiss your skin. Grass tickles your toes as you bite into the creamy popsicle melting in your hand. Pure, unbothered bliss. Capture more sun-drenched memories with the Orange Vanilla Dream Hydration Multiplier from Liquid IV. This nostalgic vanilla flavor with notes of candied orange can help keep you hydrated while savoring your favorite golden hour moments. No matter how hot your summer gets, just 1 stick of Liquid IV and 16 ounces of water hydrates you better than water alone. It's 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, with 8 vitamins and nutrients for refreshing on-the-go hydration. Live your summer dream with Liquid IV. Tear, pour, live more. Go to liquidiv.com and get 20% off your first order with code INDULGE20 at checkout. That's code INDULGE20 at liquidiv.com.
She was a member of a cult for 8 years. She says the leader of the cult had her son murdered in Southern California. And she's here to tell her story on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Welcome to the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. In the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show, we are joined by special guests talking about their experiences, the realities of investigating crimes, plus those who have experienced horrendous trauma. Police, first responders, military, and victims of crime share their stories. Hi, I'm John J. Wiley. In addition to being a broadcaster, I'm also a retired police sergeant. Be sure to check out our website, letradio.com, and also like us on Facebook. Search for the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. There's a couple ways you can stay in touch and keep informed of what's going on with the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Number 1, go to our website, letradio.com. Sign up for our email newsletter. It's real easy to find. I promise we don't spam you. I send out about 1 email every 2 weeks or so. And there's also a feature called broadcast channels on our Facebook page where we send messages directly to your inbox, directly to your messenger. Real easy to sign up for. Make sure you like or follow the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show Facebook page. And up top, you'll see broadcast channels, one for free podcast versions of the radio show, another one top post of the day. So you too can stay informed quickly, easily, and best of all, like always, free. Joining us from Hawaii. I think she's probably the first guest we've ever had on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show from the great state of Hawaii. We have Isabella Young. Isabella was a member of a Messianic cult for 8 years, was married to the cult leader. She's talking about the air quoting, murder/suicide of her son in cult in Southern California. She's written a book, New Human of New Earth, and her website is feelingbetter.naturally.love. Isabella, thanks for being guest on the show and talking about something that's really not comfortable to talk about.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be a guest on your show, John. And, some of the things I talk about aren't comfortable, and they can be very, off-putting for people because some of the things I experienced are pretty unusual, really.
Well, here's what, and we talked a little bit quickly, a lot of people have not gone through what you've gone through. However, and there's an old saying my mother used to say all the time, we all have our crosses to bear. And sometimes knowing that you can find a way to build a life that you want after this is the inspiration that a lot of people need. Before we get into your story, let's talk about your book, New Human of New Earth. What is that about?
It's a remembrance of how to be a human, because with all the introduction of AI and most people relating to life through screen technologies, how to be a human, a healthy, happy human is being left behind.
Right.
And a lot of people are suffering unnecessarily. And so the book presents like hundreds of natural medicines that are available to us in nature and in our bodies that we can use, that they're free, they're effective, and they're things that we need to know as human beings, and so we can live a good life.
So
simple things like how to breathe properly, how to.
Oh, that's been a life changer for me. And I was the biggest poo-pooer of that. What is that going to do? What's meditation going to do? What's going to be outside going to? All that stuff is crucial to my peace of mind, my mental health, for lack of better words.
Yeah, exactly.
And when I get all ramped up, which is often, and this is not about me, and I'm not sure what terminology, but slowing down my breathing in through my nose, holding it, breathing, exhaling out my mouth, breathing in through my nose, all that stuff really starts to play a big role in me getting back to what I call my center. Let's go to your website, feelingbetter.naturally.love. Is that similar?
That has, my website has my books, where you can buy my books. It also has other writings that I've done over the years, as well as my artwork, where I use Photoshop to combine images of nature and religious iconography. I call it Divine in Nature. So my website's really got all my work, my offerings, and it's a good resource. It's got some of the videos from my YouTube channel are on the website as well. So that's really the best place to find my work.
So it's feelingbetter.naturally.love is the website, and the book is New Human of New Earth. First of all, we've got to acknowledge you've come a long way. You've gone through a lot of brutal stuff in the process. Did you ever think you'd be where you're at today 10, 15 years ago?
No. 15 years ago, I just wanted to exit this world.
Oh,
I really didn't think I was going to be around because there was just too much pain to bear.
So let's talk about your story. First of all, I've often, and we had this conversation before, I often wonder how people get involved in cults, how people take cult leaders seriously. And really, this is not about how you got into it, but really about what happened to you when you're going through. Because you didn't decide one day, I'm done. It was a process. Am I correct on that?
Yeah. Nobody joins a cult. People join groups and teams and political parties and churches or whatever with the understanding that it's going to be a good thing, and often it turns out to be exactly the opposite, like a high control situation and a cult. So my childhood really set me up for that. My family was the first cult, not like in the true sense of a cult, but my mother ran the family she was the cult leader, and we all had to fall in line with her beliefs about life. She was a militant atheist, so I had this superior attitude to other people, like I was better than most people because I knew there wasn't a God. And then there was a very toxic divorce, and my mother used me as she lent on me through that, and I was only 12, so it was really inappropriate. And so that I was sort of set up in a way, pretty damaged as a child. And then I met my first husband, and he had done 4 tours of Vietnam. He was actually the longest-serving Australian soldier in that war. He was with the Green Berets in the SAS, like a real warrior. And he was also a spiritual warrior too. He had a beautiful open heart, and he really opened my mind to there being more to life than just what can be perceived through the 5 senses. So I came to understand that there is a higher power, there is an infinite intelligence, like an organizing principle that's like runs the show or whatever. Yeah. That's the best way I can describe it. And so that opened up my relationship to what I call God. And there's a lot of other words that are used to describe the higher power. I don't have a religion. I just have a direct relationship to my higher self or God.
Well, I always tell people this, and I'm big on analogies and metaphors. So when I use another 3-letter word, car, C-A-R, you're automatically going to think of what brand you think is best. And that's often shaped by what your parents tell you, what your neighbors drive. And the same thing with God. People get all wrapped up into what they think they're supposed to, and they lose basic sight of the basics. For me, it boiled down to getting right-sized and developing a relationship. Didn't really matter what I believed. It didn't matter what I did.
Yep. It's all about relationship for me, too. That's my primary relationship, and I've been developing that, for 40 years now.
So let's just say this. You are an experienced person. You've lived a fruitful life, and you're not a youngster. You're not 18 years old anymore.
No, I'm not 18 years old.
Trust me, I don't want to be back when I was a teenager. In my 20s and my 30s, I'm going to tell people right now, I almost didn't make it out of my 30s. By 32, 33, I was ready to check out. I never imagined I'd be where I'm at now in my mid-60s. Never thought I'd live this long. Had I realized that a lot of the big lessons in life I learned, Isabella, came when I was in my late 30s, early 40s. That's when I really started developing and becoming the person I wanted to be.
Right. Yeah, when you could let go other people's opinions and ideas and figure it out. That's how I felt anyway.
That makes a huge difference for me. It certainly did. We're talking with Isabella Young. She survived a Messianic cult, and she was in it for 8 years in Southern California. Her son allegedly was murdered, and I'm air quoting that, in what was staged as a suicide. And she lives in Hawaii now. Her website is feelingbetter.naturally.love, and her book is New Human of New Earth. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. We're going to take a short break. I promise you don't want to miss what we're talking about, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You can find us on LinkedIn. Yeah, we have a profile for the show, but my personal profile is the one that's chock full of content. Just do a search on LinkedIn for John J. Wiley. That's JOHN JAYWILEY, or just go to linkedin.com/in/John, the letter J, Wiley, and be sure to connect.
Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic.
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
Buying a car in Carvana was so easy. I was able to finance it through them.
Whoa, wait, you mean finance?
Yeah, finance. Got pre-qualified for a Carvana auto loan, entered my terms, and shot from thousands of great car options, all within my budget.
That's cool, but financing through Carvana was so easy.
Financed. Done. And I get to pick up my car from their Carvana vending machine tomorrow.
Financed.
Right, that's what I said.
You can spend time trying to pronounce financing, or you can actually finance and buy your car today on
Carvana.
Financing subject to credit approval. Additional terms and conditions may apply.
Return conversation with Isabella Young, contacted from Hawaii. She was in a Messianic cult for 8 years. She was married to the cult leader. Her son died by suicide, which she states is an alleged murder, and we're not able to get to the details of that too much. We will talk about that for sure. She lives in Hawaii now. Her website is New Human of New Earth, and her book is New Human of New Earth, and her website is feelingbetter.naturally.love. First of all, Isabella, going back to our first part of our conversation, no one joins a cult. Because I sit there and first thing my thought is, and I know this is narrow-minded on my part, I think of Jim Jones, David Koresh, and I think about, and it's like, oh, wait a second. The minute you tell me that I've got to exercise chastity to my wife and give it to you, I'm going to have a problem with that. When you start doing other things and preaching to me, talking about committing acts of violence to other people, I'm a huge problem with that because that's not how I was raised. But you said no one joins a cult. Would you elaborate on that?
Well, when I became part of this group that ended up, I could recognize it as a cult, I was joining what I thought was an ashram, which is like a spiritual community, with my guru, a spiritual teacher. So that was my understanding of the situation that I was entering into. But that wasn't the case at all. It was a high control group. The leader of the group still believes he is the second coming, the Messiah, the one to save humanity, and the people around him are his disciples to help him bring his mission to the world. And I know that sounds crazy, and I was at the time.
It sounds. Look, I'm not judging you at all. It does sound. And I've met many people as a police officer and in life that tell me they're God. And right there, my first thought is you need to seek help. There's something going on with you.
Yeah. Well, there was some helpful, I think, if I explained what happened in the lead up to the cult, because I was particularly vulnerable to the cult programming. So I explained that I met my first husband, who really opened my mind to there being more to life than what we can see and taste and touch and hear and whatever. So we started living our life together on a farm. I wanted to be self-sufficient, and we had a son together, and we both worked in the outdoors. He was using the outdoors as a medium to help companies with their team development and their communication and their personal development or whatever. And I was working in the outdoors with young people who had a psychiatric disability, and using the outdoors as a medium for improving mental health and increasing self-esteem and learning a lot of practical skills.
I believe that is absolutely true. For my case, it is. It really makes a huge difference. One of the things I tell my wife all the time, and I used to think that travel, when you spent hotels, you got an airplane, went to hotels, spent 3 or 4 days, I get really depressed, locked in I get cabin fever. I got to get outside. I got to spend time in Mother Nature.
Yeah, it's essential. It really is. We can't expect to be an optimally healthy, mentally and physically healthy person without spending time in nature, without actually going directly connecting to Earth, skin to Earth, and receiving the Earth energy. These are things that I've learned.
Sounds like
that have helped me with my recovery.
Sounds like things were going really well with you and your first husband. What happened?
He went to work one day, and I got a knock on the door about 10 o'clock in the morning from a local cop and a neighbor, and I was told that he died, and they found him in his car. And just like that, my dreams of a family, of a life with my beloved, and a self-sufficient farm just disappeared in an instant.
How old were you when this occurred?
I was 33.
That's still young. I'm 33 now, and I didn't know. I thought I knew it all.
Right.
In my 20s, I thought I knew it all. Man, in my 30s, there's still much more to learn. So did you feel like the rug had been snatched out from under you, that all of a sudden now you're like, you've got nothing to grab onto?
Absolutely. And I was 3 months pregnant too. So I was, I just wanted to die. That's the honest truth of it. I really didn't want to continue to breathe. But I had 2 children, so I knew I had to I didn't think it was fair to take them out with me, so I had to find a way forward, a way to just find a reason to live again. And that's really what set me on my journey. So I was in a very vulnerable place when I met this cult leader, because I did want a family, and that's what he was promising, and I did want some spiritual guidance. And, so he promised me all the things I wanted, which is exactly how, cult leaders get people in, is it's called love bombing. They tell you what you want to hear and make promises that that are really important. And so I believed him. I trusted him, and took my children from Australia to America to live with him. We had a child together, and so we were living as a family, but it was extremely toxic and unhealthy situation, really.
You don't sound unhealthy now. You sound very healthy.
Yeah, I'm almost back to where I was, I think, before Barry died. I've got that. But I'm stronger now. I'm stronger. I'm resilient. I have wisdom. I've learned from my experiences.
Someone asked me the other day about resilience, and I basically said, for me, resilience is when you have nothing else. What's the old Janis Joplin song? Freedom is another word for nothing left to lose. When you've got nowhere else to go but up, that's where resilience comes into play.
Yeah, and comes into play when you have to get back up again and again and again from being knocked down or being betrayed or abandoned or abused or whatever. That's really where my resilience has come from, because after 8 years in the cult where there was a lot of mental abuse, like we were really mind raped. There was a lot of physical abuse in terms of, not in terms of like being hit, but being like sent out and sent off from the cult and punishments like that. A lot of punishments like we had to write lines or go without food or sleep in the garage, or a lot of those types of physical punishments. There was emotional abuse. We had sex one time and conceived our daughter, and he never touched me again in those 8 years. And he told me that the reason why was because I was too needy, I was too much like a man, I didn't deserve his touch, and then basically he said it was in my best interest for me to be celibate. But meanwhile, and I only found this out like years afterwards, meanwhile he's having sex with the male cult members, wanting them to explore their sexuality, and then he's grooming their boys.
I have nothing against people's sexual choices. That's on them. However, I have a big problem with grooming, especially when it comes to younger people. We're talking with Isabella Young. She's survived the Messianic cult. She's a member for 8 years. Her son died by suicide, was declared a suicide. She suspects it's murder. It was in Southern California. She's written the book, New Human of New Earth, and her website's feelingbetternaturally.love. We're going to talk more about her experience and her recovery afterwards on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We used to have an app, and it was a very popular app. And then, guess what? We couldn't hold a candle to our Facebook presence. How many people have the mobile Facebook app already installed on their phone? How many people use it on their computer? Make sure you follow us. Make sure you like us on our Facebook page. Just search for Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast, and be sure to send us a comment to one of the posts. Best of all, it's 100% free.
Hi, I'm Kristen Bell, and if you know my husband Dax, then you also know he loves shopping for a car. Selling a car? Not so much.
We're really doing this, huh?
Thankfully, Carvana makes it easy. Answer a few questions, put in your VIN or license, and done. We sold ours in minutes this morning, and they'll come pick it up and pay us this afternoon.
Bye-bye, truckie.
Of course, we kept the favorite.
Hello, other truckie.
Sell your car with Carvana today. Terms and conditions apply.
Return our conversation with Isabella Young. Contents from Hawaii. She was in a Messianic cult for 8 years as a member. Her husband was the leader of the cult, and one of her sons died by what was called a suicide. She suspects it was murder. That was in Southern California. She's written the book New Human of New Earth, and her website is feelingbetternaturally.love. And she's here to talk about her experience. And before we get into growing beyond that, one of the things that you kept saying over and over again, and I'll say this right now, there's no other word that applies other than cult. It's not that means there's some sort of mass definition. I'm just saying if certain things, certain behaviors exist, that's what it is. I don't have another term to call it. But when did you realize that this was not what you thought it was going to be?
I didn't actually know it was a cult until after my son was murdered. But there was talk of it being a cult while we were in the group, but that was always laughed off. Like, there are plenty of other cults, but we're the cult that's not a cult, or that sort of thing. But right from the start, things didn't feel right, because the cult leader has a narcissistic personality disorder and has feeding his sex addiction, and so the behaviors that were going on were just, there was so much hypocrisy and lying and just mind twisting and brainwashing and things like that. So it really didn't feel right. He would always say that everything that he was doing and saying was for our our best interests. And that's how he got away with what he. That's still how he gets away with what he gets away with.
You said that he's still in existence, still doing what he does.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's still running his cult.
How long ago did you leave?
I left 16 years ago. So It's taken a long time to be able to talk about what happened, because it took a long time to figure out what happened and why things happened.
Let's go into that. And you don't have to go into a lot of details, Isabella. What happened with your son?
Well, he got the brunt of the abuse from the cult leader, because he wouldn't take his stuff. But he could see through him. My son could see that this guy was a fraud, and there's also what I found out later was he was being groomed. So my son was very combative and confrontational, and so he got a lot of punishments. And that was very disturbing for me, very distressing. And so there was so much tension and conflict in the house. It was a terrible situation. And one day my son came home from school, and he was in a state, and he didn't want to talk about it. And I said, well, why don't you go to bed and we'll talk about it in the morning. And in the morning he was not in his bed, and he was supposed to be going on a trip. So we knew something was wrong, called all his friends, and no one had seen him or heard from him. And then at the end of the day, we reported him missing to the police. And the next day, the cult leader sent his assistant out to look in the area behind our house, which is like a field where those electric towers run through. And he found my son's body with a knife wound to his neck and the kitchen knife next to his body. And the cult leader blamed my son's death on me. He said it was a suicide. He said that my son had taken his life because he'd found out he was gay, and that was not acceptable to him, and he knew that wouldn't be acceptable to me, which is just heinous lies. And he also said that I wasn't giving my son the life he wanted because I was so like a disobedient disciple. And that was just I just really didn't want to breathe after that experience. It was that was a nightmare. And I had 2 children, so I had to find a way to continue to live. And I went like from breath to breath for months, stayed in bed and just breathed. And then
I don't know how people survive that. I really don't.
Yeah, it's the pain is I can't even describe it. Worse pain, worse than losing my husband.
And how old was he when he died?
15.
That's so young.
And so young. And I know now that he was allegedly murdered to prevent the cult leader being exposed as a pedophile, as a rapist, and as a con man. You know, my son was silenced.
Listen, I don't dispute that one bit, and we don't have any way of proving it or disproving it. So it's look, I don't doubt that occurred, and I don't doubt what I'm having problems with is, I want you to explain more. I'm not really having problems with is you must have made a decision after that, saying that's it. I'm done with this guy. I'm done with what he talks about. I'm moving on.
That happened after I went to see this man who'd been the cult counselor for years. I never went to see him because I was so disobedient. I didn't always want to do everything we were supposed to do. But this guy would see cult members and talk about their issues and all that for years. And then he left because he could see the lies and the deceit. So I went to see him, and it was about 6 months after my son had been murdered. And I walked in the door, and he said, "You know you're in a cult, don't you?" And I said, "No, I don't know I'm in a cult. I thought I was in an ashram with my guru." And he said, "Go home and Google cult characteristics." So I went home and I Googled cult characteristics, and there's a list. Charismatic leader who's the arbitrator of truth, who controls everything, from what you eat, when you sleep, where you work, who you are married to, whether you're having sex or not, all those times all taken up by the cult activities. And then there's the gaslighting, which is a tactic, comes from a 1930s stage play, a tactic to make people feel like they're going crazy. So, things he would tell me I said things that I didn't say, that we did things we didn't do. We had conversations. So that was an everyday occurrence, that gaslighting was. So I didn't trust myself. I didn't have any self-confidence anymore. And then there's the brainwashing. We had to chant his name and stare into his eyes, and his photos, just all bizarre stuff. Meanwhile, there's photos of him all around the house, and I knew from once I went through this checklist that I was in a cult, and I knew I had to get out. But that wasn't so straightforward because he wasn't going to let me leave within 2 hours of where we were living, and I really didn't even want to be in America anymore. So I was stuck in a way, and also he told me that if I left him, I'd be turning my back on my life purpose. And I reckon now that he let me go because he knew that he was going to have another death on his hands. Because I remember I was scratching my wrists, just wanting to bleed out, and I got out, and he let me leave, and let me leave. I left and came to Hawaii, and that's really where my healing started. When I could get free and clear of just him and his evil ways, and create some space so I could understand what had happened, and then why I had got into that situation, because I learned I started studying things like narcissistic personality disorder. And it was all well and good to say, well, he's classic, narcissist textbook. I mean, if you believe in that, the second coming is got a serious narcissistic personality disorder. But what did that mean about me? And I realized that I have codependent tendencies. That's one word for it. But narcissistic personality disorder and codependency are both self-love deficit disorders. They just present differently. So narcissists present a false self, and they just create all lies and to get what they need from people, get the attention that they need, get the money or whatever it is, sex or whatever it is that they need. And I, having codependent tendencies, get my approval and affirmations or whatever from other people. So I'm looking outside myself.
Well, that's what the answer is. And I always have to look at me first and foremost. That's the only thing I can change. We're talking with Isabella Young. She was in a Messianic cult for 8 years. One of her sons died by suicide. They think it was a murder. And she is author of the book New Human of New Earth. And her website is feelingbetternaturally.love. We're going to talk about her journey after building the life she wants today. Don't go anywhere. This is Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. We'll be right back. I know we've all got lots of apps on our phone, but there's one you should check out. The Medium app, medium.com. And be sure to follow the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and podcast, where you find great articles, blog posts from me on Medium. That's the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and podcast on the Medium app, or you can go directly to medium.com.
Coverage varies by plan. View contracts and exclusions at endurancewarranty.com.
If you're driving a car or truck with an expired warranty and suddenly lost your transmission or needed a full engine repair, would a $4,000 repair bill leave you stranded? I'm Danica Patrick. Don't get caught off guard with a vehicle breakdown. Choose the company I trust. Endurance. No matter the mileage, if your vehicle is less than 20 years old, Endurance offers comprehensive auto protection plans for any budget. Protection on the drivetrain, electrical, transmission, AC, and more. Plus, benefits like 24/7 roadside assistance and rental car reimbursement on any plan. Endurance handles everything from making the claim through the repair process to paying the certified mechanic of your choice. Don't get caught off guard with a vehicle breakdown. Act now and get 1 full year of elite benefits. A $2,000 value, free.
Visit EnduranceWarranty.com for your fast free quote today. That's EnduranceWarranty.com.
Return our conversation with Isabella Young on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. Isabella was in a Messianic cult for 8 years as a member. She was married to the cult leader. One of her sons died by suicide at the age of 15. That looks like it was a murder. And she's written a book, New Human of New Earth, and her website is feelingbetternaturally.love. Isabella, there's so much about this conversation that we could unpack. And I, at the end of the last segment, you started focusing more on you. And I'm paraphrasing. What was it about me that allowed this to continue, allowed this to happen to begin with? We make certain choices in our life based off self that quite often can put us in bad situations. So you had some thought process afterwards, I'm assuming, that I've got to look at me and changing me?
Yes. yeah, I came to the understanding that what had got me into this situation was my lack of self-love, and that I knew that I had to fix that. And that took a lot of work. It's still a work in progress.
Yeah, I was going to say, because if you ask me if I love myself, I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm not going to tell you that. I don't know. It sounds ridiculous when people say, well, I practice self-love. What does that even mean? But I know exactly what you mean.
Well, it means, for me, it meant, well, really liking who I am.
That's exactly right.
Right, who I am, and trusting myself to be able to make decisions, because once I realized I got into a cult, my whole, like, how am I ever going to trust myself to make a decision again?
Well, that one is a valid question. I would hang on to that one for a while. If I made that decision in life, why would I all of a sudden blankly rely on me? I can't do that by myself. Right.
So I had to establish self-love and deepen my connection with a higher power, with God. I had to, and that helped me then trust my intuition and know that I was making the right decisions at the right time.
Well, as someone explained to me, is that I'm not responsible for the outcome. And by the way, all the things I worried about over the last 30 years, 98% of them have solved themselves without me getting involved. And I survived all of them. They've all been fine. Nothing bad has happened. So what I have to do is turn the outcome over to a higher power or God and do what's put in front of me to the best of my ability. It's all I got to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. That's a good way to live. So I also had to learn about cults and cult programming and how that works. So I did a lot of research into cults and found out that the cult tactics, or the way that cults operate, aren't just in religious groups or churches or whatever, but there can be, like, political parties can function as cults.
Yep.
Sports teams, world championship wrestling, multi-level marketing. Families can function as cults, as I said at the start, mine did. And even a relationship can function as a cult, with one person being the cult leader and the other person being the cult follower. So that was interesting to be able to identify how cults function in society, and how society can even become a cult. So that was an interesting, that was one part of my healing journey, was to understand what had happened and what was happening, like, intellectually. And then another part of the journey was to then process through my emotions that I felt, because obviously there's grief and there's rage and there's immense sadness, and those feelings, emotions, which are energy in motion, need to be processed or felt or whatever, because if we don't acknowledge our emotions and we just, like, stuff them down or medicate them or, talk them away or whatever, that there's still that energy is still stored within the body.
Yeah.
And that can cause untold problems, all sorts of physical illnesses and mental illnesses. So I had to process my emotions. I had to release rage. I had to cry. So I found a lot of different ways to express anger in ways that doesn't affect other people, like crying and screaming into pillows, or in my car, parked somewhere where I can just have the windows up and be, screaming my guts out or whatever, So I did a lot of work with releasing these emotions. You can use breath work. You can use, like, sound therapy. There's all different sorts of physical therapies that can be used, like there's tapping and eye movement desensitization. There are all sorts of these tools that can be used to release trapped emotions, because that's a really important part of healing. And
for me, it's a crucial part of healing. But here's what I got hooked on, and I'm pretty strong opinion about this. Number one, if I look for something to treat the symptoms, I'm not dealing with the problem. And the EMDR can be great. Other things can be great. But if I don't learn to accept and then take responsibility, accountability for, this is me, this is what I got to deal with, and I don't want to have a negative impact on other people, until that occurs, that nothing is going to change.
Right. That taking responsibility for what happened was a big part of my healing too. And not just trying to blame people.
Right.
Yeah, there are obviously other people who've done things that are evil, basically evil. But this is about me and my journey, so I have to take full responsibility for my choices.
So how did that lead to the book?
Well, a big part of my healing has been by deepening my relationship with nature. So I don't wear shoes except if the ground is unsafe to walk on. But most of the time I'm barefoot. I stay directly connected to the earth, because the earth is a giant battery. It has energy that we need to receive in order to increase our own life force energy, in order to stay balanced electromagnetically and physiologically. So I stay connected to the earth. I also sun gaze, and so I receive the light of the sun into my eyes as it rises every day, and that light from the sun is life-optimizing information. If you think about it, that's what makes everything grow and flourish. So I receive that light into my brain, and that has enabled my consciousness to expand way beyond what it was before. So now that I can take in more information, I can collate information and receive information. And the book is a result of what I've learned through my relationship with nature and reading a lot of ancient texts and higher knowledge that comes through a lot of different sources, and so the book is a collation of that.
So what I'm getting at is a lot of people would have this become a passion, a mission that I'm going to pass on what I've learned, what's helped me get better. Yeah, is part of this cathartic and healing for you?
Yes, definitely. Writing that book, I learned so much. I got so many more tools and practices that I can use, things that I didn't know about, I didn't really understand. We have these processes in our body, they're esoteric processes, basically just between the junction between what's conscious and what's not conscious, but it happens on a physiological level in our bodies. I know that sounds way out there, but there are processes of renewal and it sounds way out there, but
it's not that far way out there. By the way, Hollywood would tell us you're supposed to be way out there when you're young. When you're older, you get more conservative. The older I get, the more way out there I am. Let's be honest. Because
I'm way out there now.
Isabella, I don't know how much time I got left on this planet. I want to enjoy as much of it as I can. I want to go to your website, feelingbetter.naturally.love. First of all, can people get in touch with you and find everything you do there?
Yeah, that's the best place to learn about what I've learned through the time I spend in nature. I spend a lot of time relaxing out in nature and just receiving whatever it is I need to receive. Lying on the grass.
And for those who doubt what Isabella's talking about, there have been a host of people on this show that do advanced PTSD recovery using nature, using the great outdoors. FeelingBetterNaturally.love. The name of her book is New Human of New Earth. Isabella Young, thanks for being a guest on the show and talking about this experience. Very much appreciated.
Thanks, John. I'm so grateful for the opportunity to share what I've learned from my experiences with you and your audience.
I'd like to thank our guests for coming on the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show. The Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show is a nationally syndicated weekly radio show broadcast on numerous AM and FM radio stations across the country. We're always adding more affiliate stations. If you enjoyed the podcast version of the show, which is always free, please do me a favor and tell a friend or two or three. I'll be back in just a few days with another episode of the Law Enforcement Talk Radio Show and Podcast. Until then, this is John J. Wiley. See ya.
Hey, I'm Dr. Z, and I'm a neurosurgeon. So that means long hours, early rounds, late nights, and everything in between. And through it all, I wear figs. Because they're built for what I do. Through the chaos, through the hours, and through whatever the day throws at me, they do their job so I can do mine. They're comfortable when it counts and functional when I need them the most. So where do you wear your figs? On shift, on call, on the couch in the break room, listening to this podcast? Wherever it is, they fit right in. And now listeners of this podcast can get 15% off their first order. Just head to wearfigs.com and use code FIGSRX at checkout. That's wearfigs.com, code FIGSRX.